The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute professional travel, financial, legal, or insurance advice. While we aim to provide accurate and up-to-date insights based on current market trends and historical data as of 2026, travel regulations, pricing structures, and service availability are subject to rapid change. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence, consult with certified professionals, and review specific terms and conditions before making any significant financial commitments or travel arrangements. The creator of this content is not responsible for any personal or financial losses incurred as a result of the information shared herein. You are standing in the middle of a crowded terminal at O'Hare International Airport. It is 11:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. Every single screen on the departure board has just turned a haunting shade of crimson. Your flight back to Los Angeles hasn't just been delayed, it has been scrubbed from the schedule entirely. You pull out your phone, desperate to use the airline's flagship AI-powered app, only to find it frozen under the weight of 10,000 other stranded passengers hitting the refresh button at the exact same second. The customer service line at the gate is already 50 people deep, and the estimated hold time on the phone is 4 hours. You are effectively a digital ghost in a physical labyrinth. This is the reality of the great travel friction of the mid-2020s. But then you notice a traveler sitting calmly near the window. They aren't on the app. They aren't in line. They are finishing a glass of water while receiving a text message that reads, "Your new boarding pass for the 6 a.m. flight is in your inbox, and I have already secured a room for you at the Hyatt Regency with a shuttle waiting at door 4. This is not a scene from a movie. This is the tactical advantage of a human travel advisor in 2026. For the last decade, we were told that travel agents were dinosaurs. We were told that the internet and later generative AI had democratized the world, making the middleman obsolete. We were promised that by 2026, planning a complex multi-city international itinerary would be as simple as talking to a chatbot. But as we stand here today, a strange paradox has emerged. Despite having more tools at our fingertips than ever before, the act of traveling has become more volatile, more expensive, and more complex than at any point in the last 30 years. The rise of new distribution capability or NDC, the fragmentation of airline pricing, the surge in AI-generated travel scams, and the sheer volume of ghost listings on short-term rental platforms have created a landscape where the average U.S. traveler is suffering from chronic choice paralysis. Today, we are launching a deep dive masterclass into the mechanics of the modern travel industry to answer one burning question. Are travel agents actually worth it in 2026? Or are they just a nostalgic luxury for those with too much money? This is not a superficial list of pros and cons. Over this series, we are going to break down the actual economics of the industry, from the hidden commission structures that dictate what you see on your screen to the high-stakes advocacy that happens behind the scenes when a global event triggers a mass cancellation. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand exactly how to navigate the 2026 travel market, how to identify when you are being overcharged by an algorithm, and why the most seasoned travelers in the United States are quietly moving away from DIY booking and back into the arms of professional consultants. To understand why travel agents are making a massive comeback, we first have to look at the state of the DIY era that defined the 2010s. For years, the mantra was cut out the middleman and save. And for a while that worked. You could hop on a meta search engine, find a cheap fare, and book it in 3 clicks. But fast forward to 2026, and the self-service tax has become a very real financial burden. This tax isn't a line item on your receipt. It's the cost of your time, the cost of the mistakes made by automated systems, and the premium you pay for basic economy tickets that are engineered to be as inflexible as possible. We have moved into an era of unbundled chaos. Every seat, every bag, every minute of Wi-Fi is a separate transaction, and these transactions are governed by dynamic pricing models that change by the millisecond based on your IP address, your browsing history, and your perceived desperation. The professional travel advisor of 2026 is no longer just a person who books a flight. They have evolved into logistics architects and risk managers. We are going to look at case studies from the past year where travelers used high-end AI bots to plan their honeymoons, only to arrive in remote parts of Southeast Asia or the Amalfi Coast to find that the highly rated hotels they booked were actually AI hallucinations, businesses that existed only on paper and in deepfake reviews. We will compare those stories with travelers who used human advisors who physically vet their partners, providing a layer of security that a Silicon Valley algorithm simply cannot replicate. Furthermore, we need to talk about the advocacy gap. In 2026, the airline industry has largely automated its customer service. If you have a problem, you are directed to a chatbot. If the chatbot fails, you are directed to a FAQ page. The human element has been removed to protect corporate margins. However, travel agents operate on a different frequency. They have access to GDS backends and direct B2B lines that the general public will never see. When a storm hits the East Coast and grounds 2,000 flights, a travel advisor isn't waiting in the same queue as you. They are using their consortia power, massive networks like Virtuoso or Signature, to lean on hotel managers and airline liaisons to prioritize their clients. We will examine the historical trends of how these power dynamics have shifted and why status, in 2026, is often something you buy through a professional rather than something you earn through miles alone. This masterclass is designed for the US traveler who is tired of the tab fatigue. The feeling of having 45 browser tabs open, 3 different comparison sites running, and still feeling like you're getting a bad deal. We are going to solve the problem of value versus price. Most people look for the lowest price, but in the 2026 travel economy, the lowest price is often a trap. We will show you how to calculate the total cost of trip, including the hidden fees for transfers, the cost of lost time due to poor connections, and the financial impact of not having an advocate when things go wrong. In the upcoming sections of this deep dive, we will peel back the curtain on how travel agents actually make money. We will debunk the myth that they are always more expensive. We will look at the rise of the service fee model and why paying someone $500 to plan your trip might actually save you $5,000. We will explore the world of private fares and contract rates that are never published on Expedia or Google Flights. This is about moving from being a consumer of travel to being a client of the industry. There is a massive difference between the two, and understanding that difference is the key to traveling smarter, safer, and more luxuriously in 2026. If you have ever felt like the travel industry is working against you, you are not alone. It is designed to be a labyrinth, but every labyrinth has people who know the shortcuts. This video is your map. We are going to show you exactly how to find those experts, how to vet them, and how to decide if your next journey requires a professional at the helm, or if you can still brave the digital wilderness on your own. Let's begin the breakdown of the most misunderstood profession in the modern economy. To understand the true value of a travel advisor in 2026, we have to talk about the collapse of the DIY illusion. For the last 15 years, we lived in a golden age of digital transparency, or at least we thought we did. You would log onto a site, see a price, and click buy. But in 2026, the architecture of the internet has shifted. We now live in the era of hyperdynamic pricing and fragmented inventory. To illustrate this, let us look at a case study involving a traveler we will call Sarah, a marketing executive from Chicago. Sarah is tech-savvy, uses the latest AI assistants, and prides herself on finding deals. She wanted to plan a 10-day anniversary trip to Japan, specifically hitting Tokyo, Kyoto, and an upscale ryokan in Hakone. Sarah spent roughly 22 hours across 3 weeks toggling between 14 different tabs. She was fighting against what industry insiders call shadow pricing. This is a historical trend where algorithms detect your specific device ID and residency to show you a price that is slightly higher than the baseline, based on your perceived ability to pay. Sarah saw a business class fare for $7,000. She paused to talk to her husband, and when she refreshed 10 minutes later, the price was $8,200. The algorithm smelled hesitation. When she finally tried to book her preferred hotel in Kyoto through a major third-party site, she received a notification 3 days later that the booking could not be honored because of a technical synchronization error. In 2026, these ghost listings are a systemic plague caused by old hotel software struggling to communicate with modern AI aggregators. Sarah was left with no room, a massive credit card hold, and a mounting sense of anxiety. Now imagine if Sarah had taken a different route. Instead of being the lead investigator, the lead negotiator, and the lead logistics officer for her own vacation, she had outsourced the entire cognitive load to a professional advisor. This is where we break down the economics. Many US travelers still believe that travel agents add a massive markup to the price. In reality, the historical trend shows that travel advisors often have access to what is known as the GDS backend and the new distribution capability, or NDC. These are specialized pipes of data that airlines and hotels use to distribute private fares that never hit the public-facing internet. In 2026, the travel industry is more bifurcated than ever. There is the public web, which is designed for high-volume, low-margin transactions where the customer is essentially a data point. Then there is the professional channel. When a travel advisor logs into their system, they aren't just looking at the same screen you are. They are seeing contracted rates that are often 10 to 15% lower than public prices, or more importantly, they are seeing the same price but with a package of value adds that would cost you hundreds of dollars to purchase separately. Let us get into the step-by-step math of what we call the amenity stack. Most high-end travel advisors in the United States belong to a consortium like Virtuoso, Signature, or Internova. These are massive buying blocks that represent billions of dollars in annual travel spend. Because they control so much volume, they have negotiated permanent perks for their clients. If Sarah had used an advisor to book that same Kyoto hotel, she would have likely paid the same rack rate she saw online. However, because her advisor is part of a major consortium, her booking would automatically include a few key items: daily breakfast for two, which in a 5-star Tokyo hotel can easily run $80 per person, a guaranteed $100 resort or spa credit, and a room upgrade subject to availability at check-in. In 2026, with the sheer volume of travelers, these upgrades are prioritized for agency clients over someone who booked through a generic discount site. The potential outcome here is a net gain of nearly $400 in tangible value, before you even consider the intangible value of her time. If Sarah's time is worth $50 an hour, the 22 hours she spent researching cost her $1,100 in lost productivity or personal time. She essentially paid a self-service tax of $1,500 just to end up with a canceled booking and a headache. But the shift in 2026 isn't just about the perks. It is about the rise of the logistics architect. Traveling in the mid-2020s involves a staggering number of moving parts. You have digital nomad visas to navigate, fluctuating health protocols in certain regions, and a global rail system that is currently undergoing massive technological overhauls. A professional advisor in 2026 acts as a human firewall. They vet the drivers, they verify that the boutique hotel isn't currently undergoing a massive renovation that would result in jackhammers at 7 a.m., and they ensure that your ground transportation actually exists. We see this frequently in case studies involving multi-leg European itineraries. Consider a family from Austin trying to navigate the high-speed rail from Paris to the Swiss Alps. In 2026, rail strikes and technical upgrades are frequent. A DIY traveler might show up to the station only to find their train canceled, and no one at the kiosk to help. A traveler with a professional advocate, however, likely received a text message 3 hours earlier notifying them that they had already been rebooked on a private transfer or a different rail line, with all the paperwork handled behind the scenes. This leads us to the most controversial part of the 2026 travel landscape: the planning fee. For decades, agents worked strictly on commissions paid by hotels and cruise lines. While that still happens, the best in the business now charge a professional service fee, often ranging from $200 to $1,000 depending on the complexity. To the uninitiated, this looks like an extra expense. To the seasoned traveler, this is a retainer for a risk manager. You are paying for their intellectual property, their global relationships, and their ability to fix a crisis while you are asleep. In this deep dive, we have to address the psychological element of travel in 2026. We are currently suffering from decision fatigue. The internet has given us too many choices but not enough direction. An AI bot can give you a list of the top 10 restaurants in Rome, but it cannot tell you that the chef at number 3 just left to start his own place, or that number 5 has become a tourist trap that locals now avoid. A professional advisor who was in Rome last month, however, has that ground-level truth. They provide a curated experience that filters out the noise of the algorithm. As we move forward in this masterclass, we are going to look at the specific tools these professionals use that you don't have access to. We will explore the dark side of AI planned travel, and why it is leading to a record number of stranded tourists in 2026. We will also dive into the specific language you need to use when interviewing a travel advisor to ensure they aren't just a glorified order taker, but a true advocate. Because the real question isn't just whether an agent is worth the money. The real question is, what is the actual cost of a failed vacation? If you save $500 on a booking but lose 3 days of a 7-day trip to logistical errors, did you actually save anything? The math of 2026 says no. But how do these agents get the doors to open when the world says they are closed? How do they get you into a sold-out hotel or onto a flight that is supposedly full? That is where the secret world of industry relationships comes into play, and that is exactly what we are going to uncover in the next part. Imagine having a key that unlocks the secret inventory of the world's most exclusive destinations. What if the word sold out was actually a suggestion rather than a final answer? We are going to look at how the elite 1% of travel advisors manipulate the system to their clients' advantage. To understand why the word sold out is often an illusion in 2026, we have to look at the architecture of global travel inventory. When you go to a major travel site or use a search aggregator, you are looking at what the industry calls the public-facing bucket. Imagine the total number of rooms in a luxury hotel as a giant pie. The hotel does not give the entire pie to the internet. They slice it up. A portion goes to the big online travel agencies, a portion is held for their own website, and a significant, high-value portion is reserved for the professional channel. This professional channel is the exclusive domain of travel advisors. Historical trends show that hotels have become increasingly wary of the online travel agency model. These platforms often charge the hotel commissions as high as 25%, while providing almost zero information about the guest. In contrast, the hotel knows that a guest coming through a vetted travel advisor is a high-value client who is more likely to spend money at the spa, eat at the signature restaurant, and treat the staff with respect. Because of this, hotels deliberately hold back their best inventory for the human beings they have actual relationships with. Let us look at a case study involving a traveler named Michael from Miami. It is the spring of 2026, and Michael wants to take his family to a highly sought-after resort in the Maldives for a milestone anniversary. He checks every major booking site 4 months in advance and sees a bright red notification. No availability for these dates. For the average traveler, the search ends there. But Michael calls his travel advisor. The advisor doesn't just look at the same website. They log into the Global Distribution System, or GDS. The GDS is the true matrix of the travel industry. There are 3 main systems, Sabre, Amadeus, and Travelport, and they serve as the real-time nervous system for every flight, hotel room, and car rental on the planet. These systems are not user-friendly. They look like a wall of green text and complex code that requires specialized training to navigate. However, the GDS shows the ground truth. While the public website might show sold out because the specific slice of the pie allocated to that website is gone, the GDS may show that the hotel still has 5 rooms in their private management block. Furthermore, Michael's advisor has something no algorithm possesses: a direct line to the director of sales at that specific resort. In the world of 2026 travel, the human-to-human connection is the ultimate bypass. The advisor sends a brief, professional note to their contact at the resort. Because that advisor's agency sends $2 million of business to that hotel brand every year, the director of sales has a massive incentive to help. They can perform what is known as a forced sell. This is where the hotel manually opens a room that was being held for maintenance or for a high-level VIP, just to accommodate the advisor's client. This process is a step-by-step masterclass in leverage. First, the advisor identifies the true inventory status through the GDS. Second, they verify if the property is part of their specific consortium, which often includes a last room availability clause. This clause is a legal agreement between the hotel and the agency consortium stating that as long as the hotel has a single room left in the building, the agency has the right to book it at a pre-negotiated rate. Third, if the GDS shows 0 but the advisor knows the property has flexibility, they engage the relationship tier. Imagine if you were trying to get into a sold-out concert. You can stand outside the gate and refresh a ticket app, hoping for a cancellation. Or you can walk up to the tour manager who knows you and has a guest list. The travel advisor is the one with the guest list. In 2026, this is even more critical because of the rise of bot-driven bookings. Automated scripts now scour the internet to snap. When you book a trip yourself, the commission is still there. It is baked into the price. You are just paying it to the website owners who provide no advocacy, or you are letting the hotel keep it as pure profit while you do all the work. You are essentially working for the travel industry for free. But what if there was a way to redirect that money to work for you? What if you could use the industry's own financial structures to upgrade your entire experience without increasing your out-of-pocket spend? In the next part, we are going to dive into the hidden economics of travel commissions. We will look at how the money flows from your credit card to the various players in the game, and why the most successful travelers in the United States have figured out how to make the system pay for their luxury. If you think travel agents are an added expense, you are about to see the math that proves they might actually be your greatest financial asset. We are going to break down the specific commission percentages of 2026 and show you how to ensure that every dollar you spend is returning maximum value. What happens when you realize the price you see on the screen is never the final price? That is the secret we are unlocking next. The hidden architecture of travel pricing is something the industry rarely discusses in public forums. When you see a price on a travel aggregator in 2026, you are looking at what is known as the retail rate. This rate is a carefully constructed number that includes several layers of costs that have nothing to do with the actual bed you sleep in or the seat you occupy. Within that price is a baked-in commission, typically ranging from 10 to 16% for hotels and up to 20% for cruises and tour operators. This commission is set aside for the distribution channel. If you book the trip yourself, you are still paying that commission. You are simply paying it to the website for the privilege of using their search engine, or you are allowing the hotel to retain it as a massive profit margin. In the eyes of the hospitality industry, a DIY traveler is the most profitable customer because they require the same amount of service but cost the hotel zero in distribution fees. Let us look at a case study involving James, a software engineer from Seattle. In the summer of 2026, James decided to book a high-end safari in Tanzania. He found a package online for $15,000 for 2 people. James, being meticulous, spent 40 hours researching every lodge, every transfer, and every bush flight. He felt confident that by booking directly through the various websites, he was getting the best possible deal. However, James was unaware of the distinction between the agency model and the merchant model. Most large online travel platforms operate on the merchant model, where they negotiate a net rate with the provider and then mark it up to the retail price you see. James was paying the full retail price, effectively acting as his own travel agent but receiving none of the benefits. If James had worked with a professional travel advisor specializing in East Africa, the potential outcomes would have looked significantly different. Advisors often have access to what are known as net rates or contract rates. These are wholesale prices that are never shown to the general public. In 2026, many luxury safari operators have moved their best inventory entirely off the public web to protect their brand prestige and ensure that their guests are properly prepared for the environment. An advisor could have likely accessed a contract rate for that same $15,000 trip that was actually $12,000. Even if the advisor charged James a $500 planning fee, James would have saved $2,500 while offloading 40 hours of research onto a professional. But the real magic happens in the way these commissions are redirected. In 2026, the best travel advisors utilize a strategy called commission reinvestment. Instead of just pocketing the entire percentage, they use their leverage with the property to convert that commission into tangible assets for the client. Historical trends show that a travel advisor who consistently sends high-value clients to a specific hotel brand can negotiate for those commissions to be applied toward high-value perks. This is why a client of a top-tier advisor might pay the same $15,000 but receive a private bush dinner, a dedicated spotter for their game drives, and a hot air balloon excursion, items that would have cost James an additional $3,000 if he had booked them a la carte. We also have to address the shift toward new distribution capability, or NDC, which has fully matured by 2026. For years, airlines used an archaic system to show flights. Now they use NDC to offer personalized dynamic bundles. If you are searching for a flight from Seattle to Kilimanjaro, the airline's AI is looking at your previous search history and your frequent flyer status to determine which bundle to show you. A professional advisor uses specialized software that can bypass these personalized markups. They can see the raw inventory and piece together a flight itinerary that an algorithm might hide because it is too complex or doesn't fit the airline's current profit maximization goals. Think about the concept of the unbundled fare. In 2026, almost every airline has moved to a model where the base price includes almost nothing. You pay for the seat, the bag, the meal, the priority boarding, and even the ability to speak to a human on the phone. When you add all these up, that cheap fare often becomes more expensive than a premium economy ticket. A travel advisor understands the math of the total trip cost. They know which airlines have hidden fees and which ones offer the best value-to-price ratio for a specific route. They are essentially financial analysts for your vacation. Step by step, here is how the money flows in a professional 2026 travel transaction. First, the advisor identifies your needs and accesses their private database of contracted rates. Second, they compare the retail price against the consortium-backed price. If the retail price is lower, they book it but attach their IATA number, a unique identifier that tells the hotel a professional is overseeing the file. This triggers the VIP status. Third, they contact the hotel's on-site general manager to confirm the amenities. Fourth, they manage the payment schedule. ensuring you don't fall into the trap of non-refundable deposits that many third-party sites use to lock in your money. Imagine if you were buying a house. You wouldn't try to navigate the legal, financial, and logistical complexities without a professional who knows the market. A $15,000 safari is a significant financial asset, yet many people treat it like a commodity they can just buy off a shelf. In 2026, travel is no longer a commodity. It is an experience-based investment. The volatility of global markets, the fluctuations in currency exchange rates, and the predatory pricing of AI-driven booking engines have made the DIY approach a high-risk endeavor. The historical data from 2024 to 2026 suggests that travelers who used professional advisors reported a 40% higher satisfaction rate and a 20% lower incidence of logistical failures compared to those who booked independently. This isn't just because the hotels were better, it's because the expectations were managed, the logistics were vetted, and there was a financial advocate in the middle of the transaction. In 2026, the advisor isn't just selling you a ticket. They are selling you their relationships and their ability to navigate a system that is increasingly designed to confuse the end user. But how do you know if you're dealing with a true professional, or just someone who has a fancy website and calls themselves an expert? This is the dark side of the 2026 travel boom. With the return of the travel agent, a whole new wave of inexperienced influencers has entered the space, claiming to be advisors when they are actually just chasing commissions. How can you tell the difference before you hand over your credit card and your precious vacation time? We are going to dive into the specific red flags you need to watch out for, the exact certifications you should demand to see, and the one question that will instantly reveal if an advisor is a pro or a pretender. The industry is currently split between those who build itineraries and those who build relationships. If you want to know how to spot the person who can actually get you into the room where it happens, you need to see the screening process we've developed. What if the person you're trusting with your honeymoon is just using the same Google search you are? We are going to show you how to find the real gatekeepers next. In the landscape of 2026, we are witnessing what industry analysts call the Great Travel Advisor Gold Rush. Because the demand for human expertise has skyrocketed, a massive wave of new entrants has flooded the market. Many of these individuals are what we call influencer agents. They have beautiful Instagram feeds, they use all the right buzzwords like curated and bespoke, and they might even have a professional-looking website. But beneath the surface, many are simply hobbyists using the same public search engines you have access to, then adding a markup or simply collecting a kickback from a host agency. To the unsuspecting US traveler, the difference between a high-level logistics architect and a glamorous order taker is nearly invisible until something goes wrong. Let us look at a case study involving Mark, a business owner from New Jersey. In early 2026, Mark wanted to take his family on a complex winter trip to Iceland and Norway to see the Northern Lights. He found an advisor on social media who specialized in luxury adventure. This advisor talked a great deal about the vibes of the trip and the aesthetic of the glass igloos. Mark paid a $300 planning fee and moved forward. However, this advisor was a referral agent for a large host agency and did not actually possess an IATA or IATN card. In the travel world, an IATA number is your passport. It is the global standard that identifies you as a legitimate travel professional to airlines, hotels, and car rental companies. Without it, you are effectively a ghost in the system. When Mark arrived in Reykjavik, the rental car company had no record of his four-wheel drive SUV, which was essential for the snowy terrain. When he called his advisor, the advisor spent 4 hours on hold with a generic customer service line because they didn't have a direct B2B relationship with the rental provider. They were just a middleman using a third-party booking engine. Mark ended up stuck in the terminal, paying double for a smaller car that was barely safe for the roads. This is the danger of the hobbyist agent in 2026. They can build a pretty itinerary, but they cannot manage a crisis because they lack the technical infrastructure of the industry. To avoid this potential outcome, you must put any prospective advisor through a rigorous vetting process. In 2026, a true professional will not be offended by these questions. They will be impressed that you know how the game is played. The first thing you must ask for is their consortium affiliation. In the United States, the heavy hitters are Virtuoso, Signature Travel Network, and Internova. If an advisor is not affiliated with one of these, they are likely operating in a vacuum. These consortia provide the billion-dollar leverage we discussed earlier. If they say they are independent, ask which host agency they use and if they have their own IATA credentials. The second step in your vetting process is the one-question test. Do not ask them how many countries they have visited. Being a well-traveled person does not make someone a good travel advisor any more than eating at a lot of restaurants makes someone a world-class chef. Instead, ask them this. What was the most complex logistical failure you managed for a client in the last 6 months? And which specific industry relationship did you leverage to fix it? A pretender will give you a vague answer about finding a cheaper flight. A professional will tell you a story about how a flight was canceled in Tokyo, and they used their direct line to the ground operator in Kyoto to secure a private driver and a hotel room that was officially sold out. They will name names. They will talk about the specific manager they called. This is the mark of a gatekeeper. Historical trends in 2026 show that the most successful advisors are moving toward hyper-specialization. The era of the generalist who books everything from a Disney cruise to a trek in Nepal is ending. You are looking for a specialist. If you are going to Italy, you want someone who spends 3 months a year in Italy, someone who knows which villas have the best sunlight in the afternoon and which drivers are actually punctual. These specialists often charge higher service fees, and in 2026 this is a green flag. A professional who charges a $500 or $1,000 fee is telling you that their time and expertise are valuable. They aren't just chasing a 10% commission from a hotel. They are working for you. This fee aligns your interests. It means they are incentivized to find you the best experience, not the one that pays the highest kickback. Imagine if you were hiring a legal consultant. You wouldn't choose the one who offers their services for free and only gets paid if you buy a specific insurance product they recommend. You would want someone you pay directly to ensure they are looking out for your best interests. The shift toward the fee-based model in the U.S. travel market is the ultimate sign of the industry's professionalization. Furthermore, you need to verify their access to the GDS, which we touched on earlier. While some modern advisors use newer, more visual platforms, the heavy lifting of 2026 travel still happens in the green screen world of Sabre and Amadeus. Ask your advisor if they have direct GDS access, or if they rely on a third-party portal. Direct access means they can see seats in rooms that are blocked off from the public. It means they can see the fare buckets that allow for easier upgrades or more flexible cancellation terms. Step by step, your screening should look like this. First, check their digital footprint for consistency, not just beauty. Second, verify their consortium and IATA status. Third, check for niche certifications. In 2026, look for designations like VAST for luxury travel, or specialized country-specific credentials. Fourth, conduct a short interview. If they spend the whole time talking about themselves and their own travels, they are a hobbyist. If they spend the time asking about your travel style, your past disappointments, and your specific logistical fears, they are a professional. By the time you finish this vetting process, you should feel like you are hiring a partner, not just a service provider. The difference in the quality of your trip will be measurable. In 2026, we see a distinct gap in the data. Travelers who use vetted, professional advisors spend an average of 15% more on their trips, but they receive 35% more in tangible value through upgrades, credits, and time saved. More importantly, their rate of trip interruption is nearly zero because their advisor has already pre-vetted every link in the chain. But what happens when the unpreventable occurs? Even with the best planning, the world is an unpredictable place. In 2026, we are seeing a rise in what we call travel volatility. Sudden geopolitical shifts, extreme weather events, and technical collapses. This is where the travel advisor transitions from a logistics architect into something much more critical: the fixer. When the world shuts down, who is the person who gets you home while everyone else is sleeping on a terminal floor? That is the high-stakes world of crisis management, and it is the single most important reason why the travel agent is not just a luxury, but a necessity in the modern age. We are about to go behind the scenes of a real-world 2026 travel disaster and show you the exact moves a professional makes to rescue their clients when the systems fail. Imagine being the only person in a crowded airport with a confirmed seat on the last flight out. How does that actually happen? The answer is in the mechanics of the emergency override, and that is where we are going next. To understand the mechanics of the emergency override, we have to look at how airline inventory is managed during a mass casualty event for schedules. In the travel industry of 2026, we call this the red screen protocol. When a global system failure occurs, such as a major cloud server outage or a sudden geopolitical airspace closure, the primary consumer-facing systems are designed to do one thing: preserve the airline's remaining capital by shutting down automated rebooking. This is why when you open your app during a crisis, it either crashes or tells you that no flights are available for the next 4 days. The airline's algorithm has determined that the risk of overbooking a disrupted schedule is too high, so it locks the public out. However, travel advisors operate on a secondary layer of the infrastructure. Let us look at a case study involving a traveler named David, a consultant from Dallas who was in London for a high-stakes merger in February 2026. A sudden severe North Atlantic storm coupled with a technical glitch in the regional air traffic control system grounded 80% of flights departing from Heathrow. David was at the gate when the announcement came. Around him, 300 people immediately pulled out their phones. Within 90 seconds, the airline's website had buckled. Within 5 minutes, the line at the service desk stretched past the neighboring gates. David did not join the line. Instead, he sent a single message to his advisor back in the United States. While David went to grab a coffee, his advisor was initiating an emergency override. This is not some illegal hack. It is a prioritized access sequence built into the global distribution system. Every major airline maintains what is known as an agency support desk or a global sales support line. These are high-level hubs staffed by senior coordinators whose entire job is to assist high-volume travel agencies. While the general public is funneled into a phone tree that can last 6 hours, David's advisor has a direct dial number that is answered in under 2 minutes. Historical trends show that during major disruptions, airlines hold back a small percentage of seats known as operational blocks. These seats are invisible to the public and to the AI bots that power the major booking sites. They are reserved for crew movements, high-level elites, and agency overrides. David's advisor used their professional software to look past the sold-out status on the public board. They saw that while the direct flight to Dallas was indeed full, there was a single operational block seat on a flight to Chicago leaving in 3 hours, with a confirmed connection to Dallas later that night. The advisor then performed a move called a long sell. This involves manually entering the flight details into the GDS and requesting a seat directly from the airline's inventory controller, bypassing the automated ticketing system. Because the advisor's agency has a historical record of moving millions of dollars in revenue for that carrier, the request is prioritized. Within 12 minutes of the initial grounding, David had a new ticket in his inbox. He wasn't just rebooked, he was protected. This is the technical term for when an advisor secures a seat on a secondary option while still holding a place on the primary waitlist, a maneuver that is almost impossible for a DIY traveler to execute without paying for 2 separate tickets out of pocket. This brings us to the concept of duty of care. In 2026, many U.S. corporations have realized that leaving their employees to fend for themselves during travel disruptions is a significant liability. Case studies from the 2024 global IT outage revealed that companies using professional travel management recovered their stranded assets 48% faster than those using consumer sites. For an individual traveler like David, this isn't just about corporate liability. It is about personal safety and the preservation of his time. The potential outcome of David's situation, had he been on his own, was a 3-day delay, a $1,000 hotel bill at Heathrow's inflated last-minute rates, and a missed multi-million-dollar meeting. Instead, his total out-of-pocket cost was the service fee he had already paid his advisor at the start of the year. We also have to discuss the financial advocacy that happens after the crisis. In 2026, the process of claiming a refund or compensation from an airline has become a bureaucratic nightmare. Airlines have deployed sophisticated AI systems designed to find loopholes in passenger rights regulations. They might claim the delay was an act of God when it was actually a technical failure, or they might offer you a voucher that expires in 6 months instead of the cash refund you are legally entitled to. A travel advisor acts as your private prosecutor in these scenarios. They know the specific codes used in the GDS to identify the true cause of a delay. If the code says technical but the airline tells the customer weather, the advisor has the data to challenge the claim instantly. Imagine if you had a flat tire on a deserted highway at 2 a.m. You could try to watch a video on how to change it, find the tools, and do it yourself in the dark. Or you could have a professional mechanic arrive with a hydraulic lift and a fresh tire who does the work while you stay in the car. In the 2026 travel economy, the world is that deserted highway, and a travel disruption is the flat tire. The complexity of modern aviation means that the tools required to fix a travel problem are no longer accessible to the average person. The value of the advisor here is also found in their ability to manage the ripple effects. When David was rebooked to Chicago, his advisor didn't just stop at the flight. They simultaneously contacted his hotel in Dallas to cancel his late arrival without a penalty, updated his car service to meet him at the new gate in Chicago, and alerted his family. This is the difference between a booking and an orchestration. A booking is a static transaction. An orchestration is a dynamic, living response to a changing environment. Step by step, the emergency override process works like this. First, the advisor receives an automated PNR alert from their system, often before the passenger even hears the announcement at the airport. Second, the advisor checks the private inventory buckets in the GDS to find non-publicized routes. Third, they use a dedicated B2B communication channel to secure the seat. Fourth, they use their agency's authority to reissue the ticket without waiting for the airline's slow-moving refund process to clear the original funds. This level of advocacy is why the industry is seeing a massive shift in the US market. Travelers are beginning to realize that the internet didn't actually make travel easier. It just made it noisier. In a crisis, noise is the enemy. You need a signal, and a professional advisor is the only one with the frequency. But how does this translate to the average vacationer who isn't a high-flying consultant? Does the family going to Disney or the couple going to Mexico really need this level of high-tech protection? The answer lies in the specific traps that the travel industry has set for the casual traveler in 2026. From the rise of the basic economy trap to the hidden fees of the modern resort, there are layers of financial risk that most people don't see until they are already in the air. In the next part, we are going to break down the specific math of the middle-class vacation and show you how an advisor can turn a standard budget into a premium experience without increasing the total spend. We are going to look at the secret world of wholesale rates and why the price you see on the big travel sites is often a manufactured number designed to make you think you're saving money when you're actually paying a premium. What if the deal you found online was actually the most expensive way to travel? We are going to expose the pricing algorithms next. The illusion of the internet bargain in 2026 is built on a foundation of sophisticated behavioral economics and predatory algorithms. When you sit down at your laptop to book a vacation, you believe you are entering a neutral marketplace. You believe that by spending hours comparing prices, you are performing a productive task that will result in the lowest possible expenditure. However, historical trends over the last 5 years show that the major online travel agencies, or OTAs, have transitioned from being search engines into profit optimization engines. They are no longer showing you the best price for your needs. They are showing you the highest price they believe you are willing to pay based on your digital fingerprint. In 2026, these algorithms utilize what is known as click depth analysis. If the system sees that you have visited a specific hotel page 3 times in 48 hours, the price will almost certainly increase. This is not because the room became more popular in those 48 hours. It is because the algorithm has identified your intent. It knows you want that specific property, and it is testing your price elasticity. This is a common potential outcome of DIY booking that most US travelers mistake for fluctuating market demand. Let us look at a case study involving Emily, a middle school teacher from Ohio planning a family getaway to an all-inclusive resort in Cancun for the summer of 2026. Emily spent weeks tracking prices. She finally found a deal on a major discount site for $4,200 for a family of 4. To Emily, this looked like a win. It was $300 cheaper than the quote she saw on the hotel's official website. She clicked buy, feeling she had successfully outsmarted the system. But let us look at the step-by-step breakdown of what Emily actually bought versus what she thought she bought. This is the opaque inventory trap. In 2026, hotels often dump their least desirable rooms into the discount buckets used by OTAs. These are the rooms located directly above the noisy industrial laundry facility, rooms with a view of the parking garage, or rooms that have not been renovated in a decade. When Emily arrived in Cancun, she was assigned one of these bottom-tier rooms. When she asked for an upgrade to the ocean view she saw in the photos, the front desk informed her that because she booked through a third-party discount site, her reservation was restricted. To move to a better room, she would have to pay an additional $75 per night. The hidden costs didn't stop there. Because Emily's deal was part of a wholesale flight and hotel bundle, her airfare was booked in a basic economy subclass that did not allow for seat assignments or checked bags. At the airport in Columbus, Emily paid $240 in baggage fees that she hadn't accounted for. Upon arrival in Mexico, she realized her package did not include airport transfers. She ended up paying $160 for a last-minute private shuttle to the resort. By the time Emily finished her discount vacation, her total out-of-pocket spend was $5,100. Her $4,200 bargain was a mathematical fiction. Now, imagine if Emily had consulted a professional travel advisor who specializes in the Mexican market. In 2026, these advisors have access to contract rates and wholesale blocks that are strictly prohibited from being published on the public web. These are private agreements between the agency and the resort. An advisor might have seen that same resort and offered Emily a package for $4,600. On the surface, it looks $400 more expensive than the OTA price. However, let us look at the value stack of that advisor-booked trip. The advisor's $4,600 price included guaranteed private airport transfers, a room in the newly renovated preferred wing with a partial ocean view, and 2 checked bags per person because the advisor knew which airline fare codes to book to avoid the basic economy trap. Furthermore, because the advisor's agency is a high-volume partner for that resort, Emily would have received a $50 spot credit and a VIP arrival status. The potential outcome of using the advisor was a total spend of $4,600 for a $5,500 value. Emily would have saved $500 in actual cash while receiving a significantly higher quality of service. This is the total cost of trip math that most DIY travelers fail to calculate. They focus on the sticker price at the moment of checkout and ignore the leakage that occurs during the actual journey. The reason these contract rates exist is because hotels in 2026 are desperate to move away from the OTA model. When a hotel sells a room through a major online booking site, they often pay a commission of 20 to 25%. When they sell through a professional travel advisor, they typically pay 10 to 12%. The hotel saves money by working with the human advisor, and they pass a portion of those savings on to you in the form of amenities and better room placements. It is a more efficient financial ecosystem for everyone involved except the Silicon Valley middleman. Another historical trend we are seeing in 2026 is the death of the last-minute deal. 10 years ago, you could wait until the final week and find a bargain. Today, revenue management AI has become too smart for that. Airlines and hotels now use predictive scarcity. They would rather leave a seat empty than devalue their brand by offering a massive last-minute discount that they know a bot will just snap up and resell. The only people who still have access to distressed inventory are human travel advisors. When a large tour group cancels at the last minute, the hotel doesn't post a fire sale on Expedia. They pick up the phone and call their top 20 travel advisors. They say, "I have 10 suites open for next week. Give them to your best clients for 40% off." This is the shadow market of travel that the general public never sees. Furthermore, we must address the algorithm bias regarding destination safety and quality. In 2026, many booking engines are incentivized to push specific properties not because they are good, but because those properties are paying for preferred placement. This is essentially a digital billboard. You see a hotel at the top of your search results with a recommended tag, and you assume it's a mark of quality. In reality, that hotel might just be paying a higher commission to the site that week. A professional advisor's recommendation is based on feedback from real clients and personal inspections. They are incentivized by your repeat business, not a one-time placement fee. Think about the sheer volume of ghost reviews in 2026. AI-generated reviews have made public rating systems almost useless. A hotel can generate 5,000 five-star reviews in a single afternoon using large language models. A DIY traveler has no way to distinguish a real review from a synthetic one. A travel advisor, however, relies on a private feedback loop. They have an internal database where they and their colleagues log actual guest experiences. This is verified intelligence versus manipulated data. Step by step, the move from consumer to client involves 3 shifts in thinking. First, you must stop looking for the lowest price and start looking for the highest value per dollar. Second, you must account for your own time as a financial cost. If you spend 20 hours researching to save $200, you are paying yourself $10 an hour, less than minimum wage in many US states. Third, you must recognize that in a world governed by algorithms, the only way to get a non-algorithmic result is to use a human interface. As we continue this masterclass, we are going to look at the contractual protections that advisors provide. What happens when a resort closes for emergency repairs 2 days before you arrive? What happens when an airline goes bankrupt while you are mid-trip? These are the black swan events of 2026 travel that can bankrupt a DIY traveler, but are mere logistical adjustments for an advisor. We are going to dive into the specific legal and financial safeguards that come with a professional booking, safeguards that you are currently living without. Imagine having a legal team and a financial advocate in your pocket every time you board a plane. We are going to show you how that works next. To understand the financial and legal shield that a professional travel advisor provides in 2026, we have to look at the increasing complexity of what the industry calls adhesion contracts. When you click that small box that says "I agree to the terms and conditions" on a booking site, you are entering into a legally binding agreement that is often 30 to 50 pages long, written by corporate attorneys specifically to protect the supplier's capital at your expense. In the DIY era, these terms were rarely challenged. But in 2026, with the rise of extreme weather events and geopolitical shifts, these contracts have become the primary weapon used by travel suppliers to withhold refunds. Let us look at a case study involving Marcus, a small business owner from Houston. In the spring of 2026, Marcus booked a high-end corporate retreat for his team at a luxury resort in the Caribbean through a major automated booking platform. 2 weeks before the trip, a regional labor strike grounded all domestic flights in that island nation, and the resort announced it would be operating with limited staff. Marcus tried to cancel, but the automated platform pointed to a clause in the fine print regarding third-party labor disputes, stating that since the resort was technically open, no refund would be issued. Marcus was looking at a $40,000 loss. If Marcus had used a professional travel advisor, the potential outcome would have been a masterclass in financial advocacy. An advisor does not just read the terms, they negotiate them before the money ever leaves your account. In 2026, top-tier agencies use what is known as a rider or a service-level agreement that they attach to large bookings. This document stipulates that the agency's clients are entitled to specific protections that override the generic fine print of the resort. When the strike hit, Marcus's advisor would have initiated a step-by-step recovery protocol. First, they would have pulled the GDS records to prove a frustration of purpose. This is a legal concept where a contract becomes null because the very reason for the trip, transportation to the island, is no longer possible through no fault of the traveler. Second, instead of calling a general customer service line, the advisor would have contacted the resort's regional vice president of sales. Because the advisor's agency manages $5 million of annual volume for that resort chain, they have the leverage to demand a commercial exception. Historical trends show that suppliers will break their own rules for a high-value agency partner to avoid being blacklisted by that agency's entire network. Within 48 hours, Marcus would have received a full refund or a penalty-free rebooking for a later date, whereas the DIY traveler would still be shouting into an automated phone tree. This is the financial advocate role in action. You are not just paying for a booking. You are paying for someone with the standing to sue or negotiate on your behalf in a way an individual consumer never could. Furthermore, we must address the specific landscape of travel insurance in 2026. The checkbox insurance you see on Expedia or Delta's checkout page is often what we call a junk policy. These policies are high-margin products for the airlines and low-value products for you. They have incredibly narrow definitions of covered reasons. If you get a call that your basement flooded or your pet is sick, those policies rarely pay out. A professional advisor in 2026 uses standalone third-party policies from specialized insurers like Allianz or Travelex. But more importantly, they understand the cancel for any reason, or CFAR upgrade. Let us break down the math of a CFAR policy. It typically costs about 40 to 50% more than a standard policy, but it allows you to walk away from a trip for literally any reason, even if you just decide you don't want to go anymore, and recover 75% of your non-refundable costs. A DIY traveler often buys CFAR without realizing there are strict purchase windows. In 2026, most CFAR policies must be bought within 14 days of your very first deposit. If you miss that window by 1 hour, you are ineligible. An advisor manages these deadlines as part of their risk management checklist, ensuring your safety net is actually beneath you when you jump. Imagine if you were involved in a complex real estate transaction. You wouldn't rely on the seller's automated chat tool to explain the escrow process. You would have a title company and an attorney. In 2026, a $5,000 international vacation is a significant financial transaction, yet people treat it with less scrutiny than a used car purchase. A travel advisor acts as your escrow officer. They ensure that your money is held in consumer protection funds, where applicable. For example, in states like California, the Travel Consumer Restitution Fund provides a layer of protection if a registered agency goes bankrupt. An advisor ensures you are booking through entities that are bonded and insured, protecting you from the fly-by-night operators that have proliferated on social media in 2026. There is also the matter of chargeback support. If a travel provider fails to deliver a service, you might try to dispute the charge with your credit card company. In 2026, banks have become much stricter about these disputes, often requiring proof of non-performance that is difficult for a consumer to obtain. A travel advisor provides an evidentiary packet. They give you the GDS logs, the communication trail with the supplier, and the industry-standard reason codes that force the bank to take the dispute seriously. This advocacy can be the difference between getting your $5,000 back or being told the merchant's terms and conditions were valid. Step by step, the financial safeguard process looks like this. First, the advisor vets the financial solvency of the tour operator or airline. In 2026, many boutique brands are operating on thin margins. Your advisor knows which ones are on credit watch. Second, they select an insurance product tailored to your specific risks, whether that is health, job security, or family stability. Third, they manage the payment milestones to ensure you aren't paying the full balance earlier than necessary, keeping your capital in your own pocket for as long as possible. Fourth, they act as the first responder when a supplier fails, initiating the refund process before the general public even knows there is a problem. The historical data from 2025 to 2026 indicates that travelers with professional representation recovered their funds from canceled trips 3 times faster than those without. This is not just about the money, it is about the mental health of the traveler. The stress of fighting a multi-billion-dollar corporation for a refund is a hidden cost of the DIY model. By outsourcing that conflict to an advisor, you are preserving your own peace of mind. But how do these advisors stay ahead of the curve? How do they know which companies are about to fail or which destinations are becoming high risk before it hits the news? This is the world of private intelligence and the GDS deep dive. Beyond just booking, these professionals have access to real-time risk feeds that the public never sees. We are going to explore how a travel advisor in 2026 uses high-tech surveillance and industry-only data to steer you away from a disaster before it even happens. Imagine having a weather satellite and a geopolitical analyst dedicated to your vacation. We are going to show you the intelligence tools of the modern advisor next. What if you could know the future of your destination before you even pack your bags? That is the secret of the predictive travel model we are uncovering in the next part. The transition from reactive to predictive travel in 2026 is the most significant technological leap in the history of the industry. For decades, travel was a linear process. You planned, you traveled, and you reacted to whatever the world threw at you. In 2026, the professional travel advisor has access to what is known as the predictive ecosystem. This is a layered stack of intelligence tools that allows them to see around corners, identifying risks and opportunities before they ever manifest in the physical world. While the average US traveler is still looking at historical weather averages and 3-month-old reviews, the advisor is using real-time data modeling to determine the actual viability of a trip. To understand how this works, we must look at the rise of agentic AI and digital twins. Historical trends from 2024 to 2025 showed a massive surge in AI chatbots, but these were largely static. In 2026, advisors use agentic AI, systems that don't just answer questions but autonomously monitor global variables. Imagine if your travel plans were a living document, constantly being cross-referenced against 5,000 data points. These include airline technical health scores, regional labor sentiment, and even hyperlocal construction permits. Let us look at a case study involving Robert, an architect from San Francisco. In the summer of 2026, Robert wanted to take his family on a deeply immersive tour of the Japanese countryside and a few major cities. A DIY traveler would have looked at flight prices and hotel availability in Tokyo and Kyoto and booked the trip. But Robert's advisor used a digital twin simulation of the Tokaido Shinkansen rail line. This software creates a virtual copy of the entire transportation network, allowing the advisor to see that a major maintenance overhaul was scheduled for the exact week Robert intended to travel between cities. This overhaul wasn't publicized on the English-speaking web yet, but it was flagged in the advisor's professional feed. The potential outcome of booking without this knowledge would have been a 12-hour bus ride for a family of 4 instead of a 2-hour train journey. Because of this predictive intelligence, the advisor shifted the itinerary by 48 hours, avoiding the disruption entirely. This is what we call intelligence vetting. In 2026, the public-facing internet is saturated with what industry experts call synthetic noise. Roughly 60% of travel reviews on major social platforms and booking sites are now generated by AI, making it impossible for a consumer to know if a hotel's pool is actually open or if the staff is actually friendly. A professional advisor, however, uses a private intelligence database like Travel42. Unlike public sites, Travel42 utilizes a network of professional, star inspectors who physically visit properties and file reports that are only accessible to the trade. This is a historical trend where the industry has moved toward verified truth as a premium product. When your advisor tells you that a specific resort in the Bahamas has a declining service score, they aren't guessing. They are looking at a dashboard that tracks professional inspections from the last 14 days. Furthermore, we must address the concept of climate intelligence and the collocation trend of 2026. As global temperatures fluctuate, the traditional summer hotspots of Southern Europe and the American Southwest have become logistical minefields of extreme heat and power grid instability. A professional advisor uses predictive climate modeling to steer their clients toward emerging collocation destinations like the Norwegian fjords or the northern coast of Japan. These models analyze not just temperature, but tourism pressure scores. They can predict exactly when a city like Amsterdam or Venice will reach its saturation point, triggering over-tourism surcharges or site closures. By using this data, the advisor ensures that you are traveling to the right place at the right time, rather than following a 5-year-old bucket list into a crowd of 20,000 people. Step by step, here is how an advisor executes a predictive risk assessment in 2026. First, they run your itinerary through a geopolitical sentiment engine. This tool scours local news in the native language of your destination, looking for signs of civil unrest, upcoming strikes, or legislative changes regarding visas. Second, they perform a supplier health check. They look at the financial stability of the local boutique hotel or the ground tour operator. In 2026, many travel businesses are operating on high-interest debt. Your advisor ensures your deposit is going to a company that will actually exist in 6 months. Third, they use hyperlocal weather forecasts that go beyond the basic sunny or rainy prediction, looking at microclimate volatility that could impact specific activities like hot air ballooning in Cappadocia or hiking in the Alps. Imagine if you were investing $50,000 in the stock market. You wouldn't just pick a company because the logo looks nice on Instagram. You would look at the fundamentals, the management, and the market conditions. A luxury vacation in 2026 is a similar financial commitment. The travel advisor is your market analyst. They are the only ones with a seat at the professional terminal, watching the ticks of the industry. There is also the matter of biometric and zero-touch logistics. In 2026, many U.S. airports and international hubs have moved to fully biometric boarding. For a DIY traveler, navigating the varying privacy laws and digital ID requirements of different countries is a full-time job. A professional advisor manages your digital travel identity. They ensure your credentials are pre-verified for the specific systems of your destination, allowing you to walk through customs and security without ever pulling out a passport or a phone. This is not a guarantee of speed, but a historical trend of frictionless passage for those with professional oversight. We are seeing a massive shift in traveler behavior because of this. In the early 2020s, the goal was to see everything. In 2026, the goal is certainty of experience. People are realizing that one perfect day in a quiet, vetted village is worth more than a week of fighting crowds and logistical failures in a famous city. The advisor is the curator of that certainty. They are the ones who can tell you that while the top 10 list says go to location A, the real value, the real luxury, and the real safety are currently found in location B. The data from the 2026 Allianz Risk Barometer shows that business interruption and geopolitical instability are the top 2 fears for global travelers. By utilizing predictive tools, a travel advisor mitigates these fears. They aren't just selling you a dream, they are selling you a risk-adjusted reality. They are the bridge between the chaotic, bot-driven public web and the structured, professional world of global logistics. As we reach the conclusion of this deep dive, we have to bring all these threads together. We have looked at the economics, the logistics, the advocacy, and the intelligence. But there is one final piece of the puzzle that explains why, in an age of infinite technology, the human being is still the most powerful tool in the traveler's arsenal. It is something that an algorithm can never replicate, no matter how many data points it processes. It is the concept of experiential legacy. How do you ensure that your limited time on this planet is spent on moments that actually matter? In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to look at the ultimate ROI of travel. We will show you the exact framework for choosing an advisor that will change the way you see the world, and we will reveal the one final secret that the travel industry doesn't want you to know about the future of exploration. What is the one thing that money cannot buy in travel, but an advisor can give you for free? The answer is the final key to the 2026 traveler's perspective. The one thing that money cannot buy in the travel industry of 2026, yet a professional advisor can provide for free, is social capital. In an era where every person with a smartphone has access to the same generative AI tools, the same search engines, and the same influencer-driven maps, the world has become hyper-commoditized. If an AI can find a hidden gem, it is no longer hidden. It is a data point. When a destination becomes a data point, it immediately becomes subject to the same crowding and pricing surges that plague every other major landmark. The final key to the 2026 traveler's perspective is understanding that the most valuable experiences are now the ones that exist entirely outside the digital grid. These are the experiences protected by human relationships, and they are the exclusive currency of the high-level travel advisor. To illustrate the power of social capital, let us look at a case study involving Sophia, a creative director from New York City. In the fall of 2026, Sophia wanted to celebrate her 40th birthday in the hills of Tuscany. She had a healthy budget and could have easily used a premium AI assistant to curate a list of the top-rated villas and farm-to-table experiences. If she had done so, the potential outcome would have been a beautiful trip that looked exactly like 1,000 other trips on her social feed. She would have sat at the same tables as other tourists who followed the same algorithm, and she would have viewed the same vistas through a crowd of tripods. Instead, Sophia engaged a travel advisor who has spent 20 years building a personal network in Italy. This advisor did not look at a database. They picked up the phone and called a family-owned estate that does not list its primary residence on any public booking platform. This estate is only available to clients of 5 specific advisors globally. Because of this relationship, Sophia didn't just stay in a villa. She was a guest of the family. She had access to a private chapel and a library of manuscripts that have never been digitized. This level of access cannot be bought with a credit card on a website. It is earned through decades of industry trust. This is the ungoogleable world, and in 2026, it is the only true luxury left. Historical trends over the last decade show that as technology made travel easier to book, it made it harder to actually enjoy. We call this the democratization of misery. When everyone has the same tools, everyone ends up in the same place at the same time. The professional advisor acts as a circuit breaker for this cycle. They use their social capital to ensure you are the only person in the room. Imagine if you were trying to see the Sistine Chapel. You could buy a skip-the-line ticket like 10,000 other people. Or your advisor could leverage their relationship with a specialized ground operator to arrange a private, after-hours viewing where you are accompanied by a retired curator. The difference in the cost of the ticket might be marginal, but the difference in the experiential legacy is immeasurable. As we move deeper into 2026, we must also address the math of the lifestyle partner. For the modern U.S. traveler, the travel advisor is no longer a person you call once a year for a single trip. They have evolved into what we call an experienced portfolio manager. This is a step-by-step shift in how you manage your most precious non-renewable resource, your time. Just as a financial advisor manages your capital over a 30-year horizon, a travel advisor in 2026 manages your life's journey. Let us look at a character named David from Denver. David realized that his DIY approach to travel was resulting in what he called repetitive vacationing, going to the same types of places and having the same types of experiences because he was limited by his own search history. He began working with an advisor on a 5-year experience map. Step 1 involved a deep dive interview where the advisor didn't ask where he wanted to go, but how he wanted to feel and what skills he wanted to acquire. Step by step, they mapped out a trajectory. Year 1 was about architectural history in Spain. Year 2 was about conservation education in the Galapagos. Year 3 was a multi-generational heritage trip to Ireland. By looking at travel as a portfolio rather than a series of disconnected events, the advisor was able to leverage historical trends in airline loyalty and hotel partnerships to ensure David was always traveling with maximum status. Because the advisor knew David's plans 3 years in advance, they were able to secure private contract rates that are only offered to those who book far outside the standard window. This is the strategic advantage of the 2026 advisor. They aren't just reacting to your requests, they are engineering your future. But what about the cost? Many people in 2026 still hesitate at the idea of a professional fee. To understand why this is a false economy, we have to look at the concept of the self-service tax one last time. In 2026, the average U.S. household spends roughly 40 hours a year planning travel. If your household income is $150,000, your time is worth approximately $75 an hour. That means you are spending $3,000 of your own labor just to plan your trips. When you add the cost of the mistakes made by algorithms, the missed upgrades you didn't know how to ask for, and the premium you pay for public-facing retail rates, the cost of being your own travel agent is staggering. The potential outcome of hiring a professional is a net positive return on both time and capital. You pay a fee of perhaps $500 or $1,000, but you gain back 40 hours of your life, you receive $2,000 in tangible amenities, and you avoid the $5,000 risk of a logistical collapse. In 2026, the most successful people are not the ones who do everything themselves. They are the ones who know how to delegate to experts. We are standing at a crossroads in the history of human movement. We can continue to let algorithms dictate our experiences, leading us down the path of least resistance into a world of curated mediocrity. Or we can reclaim the human element. The travel advisor of 2026 is the gatekeeper to a version of the world that still feels wide, mysterious, and deeply personal. They are the advocates who fight for your comfort, the architects who build your memories, and the fixers who stand between you and the chaos of a volatile planet. As we conclude this deep dive masterclass, the evidence is clear. In a world of infinite digital noise, the human voice is the only thing that cuts through. Whether you are a solo adventurer, a family looking to connect, or a professional seeking a seamless journey, the value of a travel advisor in 2026 is not just worth it, it is essential. You have the tools, you have the data, and now you have the perspective. The question is no longer whether you can book a trip yourself. The question is, why would you ever want to? But knowing you need an advisor is only the first half of the battle. The second half is knowing how to manage that relationship to get the absolute maximum out of the industry's secret systems. There are specific phrases, specific timing strategies, and a hidden etiquette that determines whether you get the standard VIP treatment or the legendary, life-changing access. In the next evolution of this series, we are going to go even deeper. We are going to look at the top 5 destination disruptors of 2027, the places that are currently off the radar but are about to become the most expensive spots on Earth. If you want to know how to get in before the crowds and the AI take over, you need to see the data we've pulled for the next chapter of the global travel market.